All right, live on a Monday. We got a special crew in tonight because the regular crew, smarter than you, Adam's working the hockey game right now, and JVT is working the morning shift on VSIN, so he needed tonight off. But we got Alex in. Alex is a regular on Tuesdays, but he's jack of all trades, master of some. We'll get into what's going on with Alex in a little bit. And long time no speak. Ballpark is in. VGK Frank Harnish. What's up, Frank?
Yeah, everything's going okay. It's been a while, but glad to see that you're still rolling and doing everything you do. I know you're one of the busiest men I know. I'd say the busiest man in radio, but you're so much more than radio with the podcasting. And actually saw you at a couple UNLV basketball games, but you were down on the court, and I wasn't allowed to go down there, so I couldn't say hi.
Oh, you came to the game?
Yeah, I saw a couple of the UNLV basketball games this year, but I was up in the media section. So,
dude, what'd you think of that environment? Was that surreal?
It was really weird with like the cheerleaders and that over kind of like to the side of the media, and then the people down on the court, but then other people not being on the court. It was very strange. It was pretty surreal, but they got through it. But it was definitely different. It was kind of like the first time I went to a VGK game when there were no fans in that. It's like everybody thought 2020 was weird, but we can't wait till New Year's Eve. Well, guess what? There's still stuff going on, but now we're starting to see a semblance of normalcy coming back.
What's going on in the other hockey game? What's the latest?
Right now, still Edmonton and Winnipeg 3-3. Edmonton trying to stay alive. Winnipeg trying to get the sweep in that one. I believe it's double overtime that they're in right now. But, for whatever reason, Edmonton, with Draisaitl and McDavid, two of the so-called top players in the world, and they certainly are two of the top offensive players in the world, this team cannot win a playoff series. Remember last year they lost to Chicago in the first round when they expanded it, and Chicago wouldn't even have been a playoff team. So I don't know what it is about them, but boy, they have offense, but not when it comes playoff time, and they just disappear.
And there's no one there, right? None of these games have fans?
Nope, yep. It's just completely empty seats all over the place. I'm still wondering what the NHL is going to do after the second round, what they're going to do with the Canadian team. Are they going to bring them down here? Are they going to try to let them have some home games? Are they going over the border? Because, what's going on in the United States doesn't mean that Canada is going to make it easy to go along with things. And, you can't have one of their teams come and play in a bubble, can you?
Well, first of all, we'll explain what's going on to Alex because he's not a giant hockey guy. So the whole season, the way they split it up, Alex, is they had several divisions in the U.S. and they had one division in Canada. And
right.
There's been no crossing the border. That's why the Blue Jays were effed. That's why the Raptors were screwed and based in Tampa. Mm-hmm. So now we got the playoffs, and you're going to have a Final Four where it includes one Canadian team, and we still don't know from the Canadian government if anyone can go up there to play. So in all likelihood, Frank, they're probably going to have whoever wins the Canadian division is going to have to come here, have a home base, I guess, sort of close to where they are, and that'll be their base, right?
Yeah, well, maybe it's finally a way for Buffalo to get a playoff hockey team in there or something like that. Maybe they can go right across the border, or maybe Detroit will have playoff hockey again after 25 years and then being on such a cold streak the last few years. But I just don't know. That'd be weird because they'd have fans, but would they be their fans? Because I don't know if the Canadian fans would be able to cross the border and cheer for them. So I know right now the NHL is hoping that everything goes back and that the Canadian government is going to allow people to cross the border and that. And I know the NHL has told Canada that they need an answer. Something tells me that the Canadian government, their number one priority is not making the NHL happy. It's taking care of their citizens. There's a lot of people up there that think that it's there's people that literally say that they're like in lockdown, or they feel like they're in a camp or something where they can't get out of there. But what's going on in Canada is much different than what's going on down here in the United States right now.
Well, and the other reality they're dealing with, somehow Canada has actually completely effed up the vaccinations.
Oh, yeah.
That's the problem is we're getting to good levels in some states. But up there, you hear folks in Canada are like, wait, what? It took you like 20 minutes to get the vaccine and then you were good to go for the second one 2 weeks later. Like, yeah, everything was pretty streamlined here. Up there, it's been like they're waiting months and months for the average citizen to get freaking vaccinated.
Yeah, it's definitely not going well. And remember, too, at the start of the hockey season, when Canada was kind of thumbing their nose at us because there were teams in the United States, like Dallas and other ones, that were having problems with COVID, and they were like, well, we don't have any COVID issues, so we've been doing everything right. And then at the end of the season, then Vancouver and other teams get hit with the COVID. That's why they were still playing regular season games when the playoffs started for the teams here in the United States. Now they're trying to get things in and they're trying to get their games in. But like you mentioned, they're playing in front of nobody. They don't know what's going to go on in the second round. They don't know if fans are going to be allowed. And after the first two rounds, when they have to play one of the final four and they're going to have to play one of the teams from the States, right now they're just crossing their fingers and hoping that things work out for them. But right now, I don't even know what the game plan is. I haven't heard anything official. Like I say, I've heard the NHL has said, oh, no, they have to open it up and they have to let us play in there and this and that. But I don't think the Prime Minister of Canada is that concerned about what's going on with the NHL, because all they talk about is we're going to do what's right for all of our citizens. So it's going to be an interesting situation. I just don't know if that's an advantage or a disadvantage from the team from the USA that has to play a Canadian team in that third round of the playoffs.
So we're burying the lead. The lead tonight is the Golden Knights. It could have closed out the series. Could have closed it out 4-1. They looked freaking totally dominant last couple times out. But, a couple games ago, first period, they've had moments of struggles in the first period. And again tonight, Frank, what the frig was going on? I mean, they come out of the first period, they're down 3-1. What happened?
Well, from what I saw in that first period, Marc-Andre Fleury finally had a game where he wasn't sensational. It took like almost half a period before Minnesota got their first shot on goal. Then they scored. I think they scored on two of their first three. They only had 7 shots in the first period and had 3 goals. And then the second period, Minnesota completely disappears, outshot 22-1. But Cam Talbot, who I didn't think was sensational up in Minnesota, and I was talking to people about it going into the playoff series, he gave up like 22 goals in the last 5 games of the regular season. He didn't come in playing great, played very well in that first game for Minnesota. Then, the second game, they lose 3-1, and he gave up the 3 goals at the end. Then they go up to Minnesota, and all of a sudden, he kind of implodes. I was actually expecting a little bit of possibly a goaltender change, but tonight he was sensational. He stopped 37 of 39 shots. He certainly kept him in the game in that second period. Vegas helped him out a little bit with shooting some of the pucks into them when they had some open nets. It seemed to me like they were pressing a little bit. And in the third period, Vegas continued to put on the pressure a little, but Talbot was on. He was on his game. He was doing what he wanted. And it seemed like Vegas was pressing a little bit. I don't know about you, Steve, but when I was watching the game, it seemed like the passes that have been crisp and that have been really working for him, certainly in the last 2 games up in Minnesota, they were hitting guys either a little bit behind or in the skates or something. They just weren't right on point a little bit. Maybe that's because they were behind and trying to press. They lost this game. I still expect them to win the series here. Marc-Andre Fleury has been sensational again. He didn't have the greatest first period. He kind of kept them in. But Minnesota, how do you get outshot 22-1 in a period? And Minnesota this whole year, I believe they've been outscored like by 61 goals in the second period. Whatever it is, the Minnesota Wild in the second period are a horrible hockey team. But tonight they were able to survive that and move on. And now it goes back to Minnesota. But Vegas has to feel confident going to Minnesota after what they just did up there, don't they?
I mean, they do, but this is such a game-to-game thing.
Oh, for sure.
And period to period. The second period and probably the first 12 minutes of the third tonight, I mean, it was like a power play. It just the Knights were in the wild end of the ice the entire time. Think about that. 22-1 shots in a period, and you come out of the period still losing the game.
Yeah, and again, they did get a goal in that period, but it's only 1 goal, and they certainly had more chances than that, and that, I believe, was the power play goal. But, yeah, I mean, again, Talbot was good tonight, but Vegas certainly had opportunities. They certainly wanted to finish this game. The worst thing, in my opinion, about Vegas losing this game, because I still think Vegas is in the driver's seat, I think they're the better team, and Marc-Andre Fleury has been absolutely sensational. But you're giving Colorado now another couple days rest before the next round starts. And Colorado's a very good hockey team. And that top line of theirs has been sensational. The one thing that I thought was weird about Colorado sweeping St. Louis, and some people are like, oh, well, look out for Colorado. They might have, in a weird kind of way, done Vegas a little bit of a favor in that, because Nazem Kadri has that 8-game suspension. He wouldn't be available for the Vegas series unless it goes to a Game 7. Because he's only served 2 of the 8 games. Now, I know he's appealing the suspension and trying to get it knocked down, but he had to go and talk to the NHL Player Safety Committee when they gave him the 8 games. I don't see them making it less of a suspension when they said, come and talk to us, and with his track record there. Right. So by sweeping, in a way, they've kind of taken one of their players. I'm not saying he's one of their best, most skilled players, but he's a physical presence on the ice, and he's not going to be available for the first 6 games. We won't see him in that series unless it goes 7 games.
Mayor Vegas says, how many games does Leonard start in the playoffs this year? Over under 1. There wasn't anything tonight you saw from Fleury where you're like, you know what, give him a break. Still got game 7 as a backup. Do you get Leonard out there next game, or is that crazy?
I don't think you get it out there because it's an elimination game. And Pete DeBoer said before the game today, and it sounds like one of those things that's coach speech, you know, when every coach says it. Oh, the 4th game is the hardest one to win in any 7-game series. Well, Colorado didn't see that being the case against St. Louis. You know, you want to win that 4th game, but, you know, and you want to do it as easy as possible. Fleury, historically, when he's had an off game, and again, tonight, I don't think he was that great. Certainly in the first period, he got better, but I mean, you can't even judge the second period. He faced 1 shot. I think Bonino had the only shot against him, so the second period doesn't even count. He didn't face anything whatsoever. But historically, he really bounces back strong. I don't know how you put Leonard in and say, okay, well, we're going to rest Fleury for this one, because then in a 1-game, game 7, I think you go with the guy who's been your star player, not just in the playoffs, but arguably all year long. Marc-Andre Fleury's been sensational. He's got to be between the pipes again in the next game. As far as how many games Leonard starts, I don't know. I mean, in the playoffs, generally, if you have a goalie that keeps on winning, you keep on riding them.
Who's got questions in the chat room for Frank? Frank's in, breaking down some hockey for us. By the way, Frank, what's going on with you?
Right now, still doing the TC Martin show Monday through Friday from 2 to 4 over on 1400 AM. You know, once in a while, I'll sit in with Alan Schnell on his podcast, and you know, just outside of that, just watching a lot of sports and, you know, watching the hockey, watching some basketball. You know, one sport that I've actually fallen in love with, and I think we actually talked about this last year, maybe about a year ago or so, Australian rules football has just absolutely caught my intrigue when I can't sleep at night. I absolutely love that game. It fascinates me. I don't know all the players, but I think I kind of know the rules now.
Yeah, I watched I don't know. I must have been out somewhere and thrown back some beers. I watched a bunch of rugby last week, which I found interesting. And then over the weekend, I caught myself watching lacrosse. Alex, do they have lacrosse in any high schools in Southern California?
Yeah, I've done some lacrosse broadcasts this season.
Do you like it? Do you understand it?
I like it less than I should, if that makes it has all the hallmarks of a sport that's likable, but for some reason it doesn't hook me when I watch it. But it's fast-paced, physical, there's scoring, there's cool history to it. On paper I should like it, but I actually have enjoyed just because I've been broadcasting. Frank, I do high school sports play-by-play, and I've been doing like every sport, like literally every sport. I think we're going to do volleyball this week, which is like one of the ones we have. And we did field hockey. We did lacrosse. But I ended up liking girls soccer more than lacrosse. I was way more into the girls soccer season than the boys lacrosse team. I don't know. What did you like it, Cofield? Did you get hooked on it?
I don't know if I got hooked on it. When I was in college, I actually called lacrosse games, so I didn't get hooked on it back then. I didn't play lacrosse in high school. I'm not even sure we had it in like freaking gym class. A couple of the local rich kid schools had it, and then it's big in northern New Jersey. And actually, the reason I was watching, of course, my school, Rutgers, was in the tournament, and they had a chance to upset the number 1 team, North Carolina. If they won, they would have gone to the Final Four. So, of course, they lost dramatically. So.
Well, and you know, Steve, it's interesting too, because when you talk about lacrosse, I mean, there's been talk about, and we know that now there's a new indoor football team coming out here to Henderson, and we know the Silver Knights are going to be playing at the stadium. There's been talk of having an indoor lacrosse team there as well. And I know a lot of people think that hockey is the national sport of Canada. Lacrosse is actually the national sport of Canada. I mean, that's when you talk to Alex Tuck and these players on the Golden Knights and on other teams, almost all of them grew up playing lacrosse. A lot of hockey players played a lot of lacrosse as well. So, you know, it's interesting, but a lot of the hockey players probably know lacrosse better than a lot of us do. Certainly better than I do.
It was weird. Actually, one of the best players in the game I was watching was from Oregon. Was actually from West Lynn, Oregon. And if you watch MMA, you know Chael Sonnen is from West Lynn, Oregon. He always talks about the mean streets of West Lynn. So I don't think they're mean streets.
It's a rich kid town.
I know it is.
You know who else is from West Lynn? Peyton Pritchard on the Celtics.
Yeah. It's a big that high school is on. We actually talked to Chris Miller, who played quarterback in the NFL back in the day with the Falcons and a little bit with the Rams. He's actually the head coach, so they have a former NFL quarterback as a head coach there. I think it's his second stint. Yeah, Truth from Duluth says, yeah, and if you saw Canada at the World Hockey Championships, you definitely believe it was lacrosse. Okay, all right. Little shot there.
Some veiled hockey shots being taken.
Mayor, Frank was on Lotus, on and off, Frank, from when to when?
Started there in 93 and left there in 2020. So 27 years basically that I was on Lotus doing. I did overnights on Comp 92.3, and I was basically on every one of their sports stations with the exception of 1230 because I don't think we had that yet, or maybe it was just I think it was still a Spanish station before it was a Silver Knight. So but I've been on ESPN and Fox on 920. I I know they're all like now it's Raider Nation Radio and it's the VGK station but yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of different stuff there. I've like I say, did overnights on Comp for 92.3, the rock station for years, and did some shifts on the Point as well. So did a lot of different things there, and including promotions for a while. So had a lot of fun doing that. Missed some of those old giveaways, like when we used to make a big deal out of giving away a vehicle and having a 6-hour remote or something like that all around it.
We had a couple of good ones. Yeah. Frank Fredericks, right, on Comp?
Yeah, Frank Fredericks, because I was going to go with just Frank Harnish. And, you can't use your last name. People are going to hound you. They're going to look you up. So use 2 first names. And I took Frank Fredericks because my dad's name was Frederick, so it was kind of my tribute to him.
What is that? What are you on radio? What are you, Alex? When you were doing your mix. When you were playing music, you just went with your name?
Yeah, I just went with my name.
Wasn't it like Craw Dog or something, or Dr. Crawford?
I mean, sometimes I dabble with my Instagram name, which was Zen Daddy, or is Zen Daddy West Coast. That's kind of like my stage name for like. Sometimes I do a little. This is you always make fun of me for being the jack of too many trades, but sometimes I'll do a little DJing on the side. Actually got a wedding coming up in a couple months and stuff. But when I do that,
when did this come up? I didn't know you were wedding DJ. Really?
Occasionally, I've been tapped into service here and there. I'm doing a wedding. I did my friend's wedding right before the pandemic, and I'm doing another one later this year. And now I'm like excited. Now that weddings are back, I'm hoping to maybe pick up a few more. If you know anyone that needs anything, I can and do the service.
We've got connections locally. I don't want to cross lines here because
all right. They're probably really good.
Willie Ramirez, I'm sure if he could pick up a DJ gig at a wedding, he would do it. And then I'm not sure if he's still doing it, Frank, but I know Art Breifogel was actually doing weddings, which I can't even imagine what those weddings are like.
Yeah, I think he kind of stepped aside from that because it got to be too much of a pain for him to haul the equipment around and set it up all the time. He's where those big double-decker buses you see on the strip all the time, the big bus. Art's been doing that for a while. He's always posting videos of it, and they take people. Oh, there's the Bellagio fountains, and there's T-Mobile, and there's this and that. He's the voice on the one of the voices on the big buses that you see going up and down the strip, entertaining the tourist.
That's amazing.
He's not driving. He's just the tour guide.
No. He's not driving. Yeah, you wouldn't want your driver falling asleep on the strip there like he does. But no, he does the voice, and Sin City Artie here, and it's there's the Bellagio fountain. Oh, there's where Tupac got shot, and there's this and that, and he's constantly posting videos about it. So it's today on the big bus. Oh, it's hot in here. Oh, it's raining today. Oh, we had some rude people from England today. So he's always a little bit surly, but semi-entertaining.
He's a blowhard. He's got a good voice. He's a funny guy. He's a really funny guy.
A gig like that sounds so fun to me. Like that's such a fun gig. Yeah.
I was gonna go on a tangent. I won't go there.
What?
Nothing. There's a show on HBO Max called Hacks, and it's basically about like an aging female comedian who's been on the strip for like 25 years, and as she's starting to lose her edge, she is not losing her edge. She's starting to lose her gigs, right? Because they want to get younger. And there was a scene where she just I guess she tries out material. She'll jump on the tour bus and try out material with the out of towners. So I just thought it was interesting. See what I mean? I go on a tangent. It's weird. Go watch it. It's actually, I think it's decently written. It's called Hacks.
So she uses the tour bus basically as her own improv stage.
Yeah. She's kind of a mix of like a Joan Rivers character, not that much, but Joan Rivers and Rita Rudner. Not the same style at all, but Rita Rudner played here for like 20 plus years. So Alex, what the last couple shows you did, because I know you bailed on the DJing, kind of mixed sports talk DJing stuff. What kind of music were you playing? What kind of music were you playing?
Yeah. So I was doing a Wednesday. Sundays was doing sports talk on one of the local stations here, but then Thursdays it was mostly music. But the station's programming was pretty classic rock based. They let you kind of like they didn't give me songs to play, so I would go more towards like a lot of Motown, funk, soul, kind of 60s, 70s, some 80s, and kind of stay in that vein. And then mixing some talk as much as I could in there. Is that what you're asking, or asking what I play at weddings?
No, asking you what you played on the station.
Oh yeah, that's what I played. Yeah.
Frank, did you have a leeway of what you could play, or was it all programmed?
It was mostly programmed. The funny thing is, every year, one of my favorite nights on comp was when the clock would change and you have the extra hour, because the music director back then, Big Marty, would generally forget to put music in for that extra hour. And I would open up the phone lines and just say, hey, it's the, give me a call because I got nothing here on my log, whatever you want to hear. And, that was the old reel-to-reel tapes when you'd have to slice tape and do stuff like that. So that was the one time all the time that I would basically not go off the log, because I literally didn't have a log to go on. But and once in a while they would tell me, it's like, look, you're on the overnight in comp, have a little bit of fun with it, but play some requests here and there, but don't go too far off the log, and don't play stuff we don't have in the studio. Because one time on Halloween, I actually brought in the tape of the Jim Carroll Band and played People Who Died, because I thought it was good for a Halloween tune. And the program director said, hey, that's a really cool tune, and it fit on Halloween. Don't ever do that again.
So tons of Godsmack.
Yeah, there was a lot of Godsmack on comp. There was, like I say, there was a lot of different stuff. The one song that would always come up on my log by Blind Melon, that little one where the little girl's in the bumblebee thing, or No Rain, whenever that came up on my log, I never played that. I just couldn't stand it. And one time Big Marty asked me, he's like, so Frank, you ever going to play that Blind Melon song? I'm like, what? Because I assumed that it always came up in the 2 or 3 o'clock hour, and I figured, well, no one's listening right now. But he used to go out with his buddies on his motorcycle, and he'd turn it on, and I would always play like Megadeth, Peace Cells, But Who's Buying, or AC/DC, Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be. Something that I knew wasn't coming up in the log later, or something by Maiden. I mean, something really rocking. And I was like, well, Marty, I just assumed that was a dealer's choice song, because I know you don't want me playing that crap at that time in the morning. Somebody working in a warehouse is going to fall asleep and drive off the edge or something. So, and he's like, well, you've been doing a good job, but I was just wondering if you ever planned on playing it. I'm like, nah, not unless you absolutely order me to. And he goes, no, it's kind of fun now, just wondering what you're going to play. So that was kind of fun then. But that was the only song that that would come up on my log, and I'd be like, oh, that thing is so lame. There's no way I'm playing it. And I just wouldn't.
Alex, did they ever yell at you for stuff you played?
Not really. This station was like, it's a community station, so there's like less rules. I feel like there's less mouths to be fed.
Money being made, egos.
Yeah, there's a lot less money being made.
Like, just keep us on the air, okay?
Yeah, well, they really liked requests. Like, we were told to take requests, and people would like get off on just getting their requests in. Like, there's people, they would call in every time, and they call in every show, and they were so stoked for their request. It was like making their whole day. So this is like the station that I was working at here is a really small community station, but it has like a very strong cult following, because they do play really good classic rock. They play like just B-sides and a lot of like some deep cuts, 60s, 70s, and 80s. So people really like it. But no, I never got complaints. I got maybe complaints about doing too much talk, and they just wanted more music. But
that's awesome.
I wanted to talk. I'm like, all right, I'll play some music and I can get a little talking.
Frank's doing like an hour of sports talk late night on comp. Didn't do that.
I never did that, but I did have some fun. I remember the first time that I had to work on New Year's Eve because being the new guy, you always got Christmas and the bad, the shifts that nobody else wanted. And I remember the first New Year's Eve I worked at Craig Williams, who's actually still with Lotus there in Vegas, and he told people he was at Pinky's where we used to do a ton of remotes, and he was like, "Hey, the new guy's back there, bring him something." And like 6 or 8 people or something. They brought me like 6 packs of beer and bottles of champagne and stuff. And a couple girls came down to see me and that. But, oh, you're all by yourself and this and that. And I'm like, hey, this is kind of a cool gig.
I was going to go there. Believe me, I was going to go there. Trust me, Alex, the station that Frank's talking about is one of our like big boomer FM stations. And things have changed a little bit. But like back in the day, Frank was walking onto a station that was like a fucking powerhouse. Like these guys, the guy Craig he mentioned, those guys were superstars. We had all sorts of famous, like local Vegas legends on that station. That was a big deal to get on that station, right, Frank?
Yeah, it was. And I mean, like I say, I started doing the overnights and that. And it's funny because when I first started out, I had to go into broadcasting school and I was running Stars baseball games long before the Aviators or the 51. So, and they were needing somebody over there. And one of the guys told Mike Collada, who was the program director at the time, they're like, well, give Frank a shot. And he goes, I don't know. And so the first couple of shifts I did, all of a sudden I was trying to be a DJ. And I found myself like doing a really bad Wolfman Jack or something, like 92.3 The Rock Station. That was Metallica. And I listened to my air checks and I was like, oh my God, I suck. I'm going to be fired so soon. I might as well just have fun with it from now on. And then I just started being myself and having a little more fun and doing stuff. And then I kind of got my niche and people liked me a little bit more. But my first couple air checks, they were so cheesy. It sounded like I was the guy that was like trying out to be an American Graffiti or something like that, that they said, who the hell is this clown? Get him the hell out of here. I mean, they were terrible because I was trying to play a role instead of just being me.
Right.
Sounds like great career advice.
Oh yeah, no, it's totally true. The first time I got on the air on Sports Talk, professionally, I think I told the story. I had driven out with my friend who was an on-air guy. I came out as a producer, and his co-host was just a giant drug addict. So he just drugged himself out of the business. He started falling asleep during morning shows, like back-to-back morning shows. He's just dozing off. So they're like, hey, you go fill in. And after the first show I did, the program director's like, wow, you kind of just sound like you do off the air. I'm like, isn't that what you're supposed to sound like? I'm like, well, why wouldn't I sound like that? So I was like, yeah, I'll take that as a compliment. Frank, did you have regulars that called almost every night for a request?
I had a few regulars. I had a couple of people that worked in warehouses that would call me request songs. I had a couple local bars that would always tell me, oh, come here and have breakfast after you get off your shift or this or that, or, can we hear this now? Or there was a guy named Frankie from Michael's Pub who I got to know pretty well, which was right down the street. He always either wanted Queensryche, Eyes of a Stranger or one or two other songs, but it basically was that. Then I had a couple nurses at hospitals and that were working the late night and that. So, yeah, there were definitely some regulars that were there, and it was kind of cool. But what was also neat was when we first got on the internet, I would frequently get calls from like Japan or Germany or something like that, people that were stationed out at Nellis Air Force Base, and they liked comp when they heard it here. So when they went overseas, they would hear us on the internet, and I'd get a call like, hey, we're here in Okinawa, and we're up on the top of this mountaintop. Can you play something? I would throw out a song for them because I figured they're our military. And again, our general manager at the time was like, well, can they advertise? Can they do something? I'm like, no, but it's pretty friggin' cool, dude, that we're going around the world and they like this stuff. It's 4:00 in the morning here. It's midday or whatever the hell time it is in Japan. So, yeah, whenever I got a chance to play something, if a service person called me from England or Germany or wherever, I generally played their request or at least something close to it. If it was something like with all, lyrics like 9 Inch Nails, Blank You Like an Animal, and they wanted the unedited version. I didn't do that, but I would play something to try to appease them.
If you broke format and you played like Big in Japan or what the hell's the other song? What's the other Turning Japanese? You'd probably get in trouble for that one. Yeah, you'd probably get in trouble. That'd be a problem.
And like I said, well, they weren't even in the studio, so I couldn't. But again, that was at least before everything was in the computer. When we actually had CDs and you could pull out the CD and I could find a def track. Like instead of playing, Hell's Bells, I could play Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be or something else that was on that CD.
Technology. God damn.
And then when they'd look at me and they'd be like, hey, we told you not to. It's like, you said don't play anything that's not. Oh, you meant on the log. Oh, I thought you meant in the studio because it was still, you play your little games. But again, I mean, for the most part, they told me on the overnight to have a little bit more fun with it. So I did have more freedom than some of the other jocks.
Not to be obnoxious, real quick. I'll have Brady answer this. Brady, do you know technically what an air check is? I'm just curious. Maybe I don't know if the rest of the room does, but go ahead, Alex.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I hear these stories and it just makes me feel so young, and like I wish that I had lived in the era when radio was a bit bigger than it currently is. Not to say it's not big, but I just hear these stories and it's just, you're talking about these guys, these rock DJs being rock stars in Vegas and this and that.
Oh my God.
And I just long for having lived during that time.
It's funny. I'll link a story out, at least to you. I don't know if the audience is going to care, but a guy wrote a story on Jason Barrett's blog. Jason Barrett does a sports radio blog, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And he did a whole thing on how radio in some ways is less attractive than it's ever been, sports radio, for people to get into. And as I was reading it, I'm like, yeah, I don't agree with this. But a lot of it was just talking about opportunities and funding stations, but it's kind of interesting. But yeah, Frank is a little older than me, so he came around during an era where, yeah, these folks were freaking rock stars, and going back to the 80s, and especially in Vegas, as small a town as Vegas was, comp was so freaking big, and they were tied in with all the artists. I mean, hell, we had the lead singer of Quiet Riot, DJing for a while until his untimely death.
Yeah, with Craig Williams, it was Craig and Kevin DeBro.
Yeah.
So, because I remember the first time that Kevin came in, he looked at Craig and he said, "Hey, Craig, can I say fuck on the air?" And Craig just looked at him and he said, "Once." Because we didn't have a delay back then.
Right. Once.
There was no delay when Comp was first on the internet. So if you took a call live, or if you did an interview with Ted Nugent or somebody else or something, and you did it live, you were rolling the dice that whatever came over was going to go over.
Yeah, and Mark mentioned broadcasting is more accessible than ever with the ability to podcast. It is, but it's still an interesting animal to tackle, if you tackle animals, to make money doing the podcast. So there's kind of there's a structure in place in radio to make money. So I think that structure is eventually going to move to podcasting, and it's going to be a balance. But that is a cool part about broadcasting, because a lot of times people can't get into radio. It's super corporate. It's about connections. Hosts stay on forever. So look at all the stars that podcasts have made, and look at all the people who radio was like, I don't think we can deal with you. Fuck you, your career's over. And then like 2 years later, I don't know if that conversation ever happened with Adam Carolla, but if it did, then Adam Carolla's like, fuck you, because I'm doing fine, because he's making like in excess of $10 million. So cuts out the middleman. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and certainly with a podcast too, you have more freedom to, use the language and talk about whatever you want to. And, you run the show. You don't have somebody else, a program director or a music consultant or sports consultant or something coming in and tell you need to talk about this, this, and this. You can make it specialized. You can make it this or that. But the key, like you mentioned, Steve, it's one of the things that I admire about you, because I know, because you do go out there and you do a lot of different things, but, you make things work and you stick with it, and you have your format, and you talk about things that you're passionate about and that stuff about, but you don't have you don't have somebody telling you. I remember one of the things that I liked when Vegas first got the Vegas Golden Knights was, after over 20 years on the radio, I could finally talk hockey on the radio, because I was always told you can't talk hockey, it's a ratings killer. Then all of a sudden the Vegas Golden Knights came and they said, hey, we need somebody to be able to talk hockey. It's like, still here, still love the game, but for a long time I didn't watch hockey with the same enthusiasm that I used to when I was younger and I lived back in Chicago, because I knew that I was never going to be able to talk about it on the radio.
It's hard to squeeze hockey in, even in markets that have it, because sometimes they're just swallowed up. We were talking to today. We talked to a guy who's on the Fan in Denver, and I was like, "Hey, how big is hockey? There, the Avs are awesome. Avs are probably the favorite to win the Stanley Cup, and they just blew through the first round." And he's like, "Yeah, people get mad at me here, but we're Broncos. Basically 365 days a year.
Right.
That's the way it is. But yeah, I mean, since Vegas has VGK, well, for a little while it was the only major league sports team. It's still going to get and we devoted a whole station to it. So, there's plenty of talk over there. So yeah, McDavid's out. Connor McDavid's out. Edmonton is out. Winnipeg sweeps 4-0. Yeah, and I wish they were my Jets. And I don't think they do the Jets game.
Yeah. You the JETS Jets.
No, not the same thing. Not the same thing. Real quick, just to answer the air check thing, because Brady was saying, when's the last time he did an air check? We almost never do them. We almost never have the same managers in place at Lotus in terms of program directors. But do I listen to my own stuff? Yeah, because I am part of the vast sound crew, so I wind up cutting a lot of my own stuff. So I go back and listen. So I need to go back and listen more often. But air checks are good because you do need someone, right, Alex, listening to your stuff, telling you if the doctor was good. Did you guys get a lot of air checks? Did you have a program director at the time?
At the fan?
And the desire to do it in Portland? Did your morning show get it?
Yeah, we didn't do a ton of air checks, but we would meet with our program director. I actually would have liked to do more. I like now I send my stuff to people like you and a few other people in the business. I'll just send it, especially like my play-by-play right now, send it to people and ask for, feedback, or I just listen back. I like at least once a week, I try to listen back to a game I did, or watch a live stream, and just because then I like, oh my God, I can't believe I just instantly learned so much. Like, I use that phrase every time in like one of the basketball live streams. Every time someone shot a layup, I kept saying high off the glass. And like, not every shot was high off the glass. It maybe touched the glass, but I just found myself leaning on the same phrasing repeatedly. This is terrible. This is terrible. No, just like 4 times in a quarter. I'm like, okay, like I know those shots weren't high off the glass. Stop saying that.
So it kind of became your crutch a little bit?
Yeah, it became my crutch, totally. And I find myself doing that all the time. So, but I feel like the only time I figured that out is by listening back. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I was using that phrase a lot in that game. And then maybe by the end of the season, I've like diversified my phrasing enough because I actually, listened back or sent stuff to Cofield or someone else and asked for feedback.
So, Frank, tell me, are you guys, because TC's the voice of the Aces, do you guys do a decent amount of women's basketball?
We have a lot of Aces talk on. We have the players on. We have Lambeer on. I mean, I know the season just started, but I think we've already talked to like 5 players and Lambeer and then the new president. So I think he plans on having Mark Davis on sometime soon. And I think the bulk of that is going to be more Aces talk than Raider talk. I know TC's had him on during the games and that too. So, yeah, definitely watching a little more women's basketball than I have in the past. I'll be honest about that. I'm more of an NBA guy, and I love women's sports. I love women's tennis and some other stuff. I have not been a big women's basketball fan per se, but I know he does the games and that. So, for instance, I just found out recently that the Mandalay Bay Bench Center is now the Michelob Ultra Lounge or whatever because they changed the name of the arena. So, that's another team in town. It's amazing. And Steve, I know we can both relate to this, how, when you came out to Vegas and that, it's like, okay, there was the minor league baseball team, depending on whether it was the Stars or, of course, then the 51s and now the Aviators. And then, there was a lot of teams that didn't basically make it, I remember the Flash and roller hockey or whatever, and there was all sorts of things. And now there's everything out here. We have an NHL and an AHL team. The Aviators are here, and the Oakland A's are talking about coming out here. You have the Raiders, the NFL. So, it's amazing how everything is out here and it's all successful. I just wonder if at one point is, how much is too much? I mean, are they going to be able to continue to sustain all this? Because, Vegas is a decent-sized city, but it's not like it's LA or Chicago or New York or something.
I want to address that. Address that in a minute. I was making the transition on WNBA because of this story. Mayor Vegas was saying, any thought fun coach calling 230-pound Liz Cambage a 300-pounder. All right. First of all, I guess I have to hear the audio. That's not the way I read it. This has now turned into a fat-shaming story. Alex, I'll ask you first of all, you do play-by-play for girls sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you use different terminology? Are you extra careful in some ways to be a little nicer when you call the games versus, I don't like that you're shaking your head, but go ahead and answer.
Oh, I was going to say I do tread a little bit lightly with girls hoops, particular. Just like I will a lot of times with boys hoops, like one of the big men, one of the power forwards, the center, I might call him thick, beefy, and I might like exaggerate his weight and height a little bit. And go a little homer on that. And with the girls, I'll just use some different phrasing because I don't know. I don't want to call a girl beefy. I don't think she's going to want to listen back and hear that. But also,
so you wouldn't call a woman the round mound of rebound like Charles
No,
Barkley turned it as a term of
no.
endearment?
I would not. And also, though, I'm working for a high school, and our job is to like empower these athletes, right? So I don't want to really say anything mean, but I do. But to answer your question, Cofield, this happened because the first girls game I did, the girls team for the high school I work at, like they just won league. They've won like 9 games in a row. They're in the playoffs starting on Saturday, but they play like super physical. And the first game we did, I caught myself. I was like, wow, I said something like they almost play as physical as the boys, or like I expected them to not. And then, which was genuine. Then I'm like, oh, I don't really want to say that. Like, I don't want to put them like, oh, how could they be more physical than the boys team? But they were like full court pressing, scrapping.
Why are you being sexist?
That's how I was like,
see what you're doing? But you see what you're doing?
What am I doing?
Well, on one end, you're not going to talk about people's build on the floor, and then on the other, you have it in your head that, well, the guys play more aggressive than the women. Frankly, when I covered girls' high school sports, I thought the teams that generally won were the ones who hustled their ass off and roughed up the opponent and usually used a 3/4 court or full court press and increase the action. I wasn't thinking like they're playing like guys, but I think this fragility about language when you're covering women's sports is actually, I think, a giant slap in the face of female athletics. And I don't think enough people around female athletics understand that if your game's going to be covered differently, then your game's not really getting coverage. Like the attitude of like, you go girl is really fucking insulting. And if I'm trying to think of a recent, the U.S. women's soccer team, right? I have no issue when they don't win the cup and they're the favorite or the co-favorite and they bow out early. But when they don't win the World Cup, I have no problem saying they choked. And I think there's a lot of people who are like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, do you want the coverage or not? Are we going to... It's insulting not to use the same language that we use for men. Am I wrong? Put me in my place.
Well, no, it's interesting, Steve, because you and I have both covered a lot of MMA and boxing and combat sports in that. And one of the things that people talk about all the time is, how, I like the lady fights because they all bring it. They go to the gym and they have to bring it every day. And, there it's considered like if you compare them to the men that, it's like a compliment or something like that. So I kind of agree with you on that. Plus, with the Liz Cambage, with that particular incident, I believe the coach of the Sun was talking to the referee because he was talking about a foul when he said, my God, she's 6'8", she's 300 pounds or whatever. Liz is the kind of one, I believe she's the one that kind of brought it to the attention and said, no, I got on the scale, I'm 235, I'm not 300 pounds, and then she also made the comment, and I find it semi-interesting that nobody's bringing this part up, when she said she's not going to let a little white man intimidate her or tell her what to do. But he's being berated for saying that she's 300 pounds, but she basically says whatever she wants. And he wasn't saying it to the media. He didn't say it to her or the coach. He said it to the referee because he was trying to buy a call from the foul in that. Maybe he shouldn't have said it. Maybe he should or whatever, but it's kind of getting blown out of proportion a little bit. But Liz, from what I understand, is the one who kind of brought it to the forefront.
He did. This is the second or third time that she's gone to Instagram and on her own post brought race into a story. In this case, somehow this was fat shaming. So now this coach of the Connecticut Sun has been suspended, which I find outrageous. I don't know. Alex, talk me off this ledge. Because here's what happened. Let's give the audience the story. Basically, so he's the GM and the coach. Kurt Miller fined $10,000, suspended for a game. The center for I almost call them the Knights, the Aces, is 6'8". She's by no means fat. She's 6'8" and good sized, right? So Miller, the coach, remarked to the referee something along the line. This is what she's saying. Quote, come on, she's 300 pounds. In the Instagram post, she corrected him saying she's 6'8", 235 because she just weighed herself so she can be, quote, right and have, quote, all the facts. And that she is very proud of being a big bitch.
Yep.
Wait, what just happened here? She said, I will never let a man disrespect me ever, 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 especially a little white one. Don't ever try to disrespect me or another woman in the league. I think this story is so much more complicated than people just making it into what she believes was fat shaming. But Alex, go ahead. Give me your reaction.
No, I actually agree with you. I think it's kind of insane that the coach was suspended, because that is handling something with kid gloves in the sense that it's not equally being represented. It's not the right word, but it's not being handled the same way. I stand by what I said about my broadcasting, because I don't want to call a girl playing hoops. I'm not going to call her
high school.
And then also just, I guess I would just say, like, in society, calling a big man in hoops beefy or thick is a positive thing. In society, calling a center. So I'm just not going to use those words. But
I'm gonna work. I don't even know if she wants to do anything right now, but the former UNLV coach, Kathy Olivier, the few times we would talk to her, Kathy just speaks normally, right? And she would talk about women on her team, like she would talk about recruits coming in and say thick. She would say it. Because
that's cool.
That's normal. That's normal sports talk. If you're a thicker person playing center as opposed to a freaking someone who's rail thin, like you don't have to call them I actually think you should be able to. I call guys lard asses, and if a woman's bigger and she's got an advantage, but I don't know, man. This one disturbs me. I think Liz Cambage has a history of throwing the race thing in, and this is why I will not do this on the air. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to be called a racist, because she's already done that to one local media member. She's already made that accusation of her country's national team and some of the images they put out. So to me, this is a broken record. I think it's starting to lose effect, and I actually think Ace's management needs to talk to her. And as Brady said, she knows what he was saying.
Oh, for sure.
First of all, I don't even want to get into body image issues, right? I guess that could happen when you're 6'8". She's not fat. We know she's not fat. And I swear to God, this happens to, as an example, LeBron James, right? And I did it on Sunday. I'm watching the Suns and the Lakers go at it. LeBron gets undercut by Chris Paul, right? LeBron acts like he was hit by J.J. Watt, right? And I love LeBron, but he's going to sell calls. LeBron goes down in a goddamn heap. And without hesitation, I was like, really? I'm like, Chris Paul weighs 180 pounds. Is there any way he could move 280-pound LeBron James like that? Now, LeBron might be 260. Now, was I calling LeBron a fat fuck at 280? No, you're trying to make a point. The person is gigantic in that matchup. But if this is the path we're going to go down, where we've got to use different language to describe the games, then I'm out.
Well, I just would say I think that this is different than even talking about what a play-by-play announcer would say. Because I think in this instance, we all know what the Connecticut Sun coach was saying, which is exactly what you just described. I think this is even different than what a play-by-play announcer says in choice of language in an article or in coverage of the team. I think this is totally different. And I agree with you. I think this is whack that the coach got suspended. I think it's BS.
Well, and again, one of the things to me that I kind of don't like about the whole story is he wasn't calling her out. He didn't say anything to the media. He didn't say anything. He was talking to the ref trying to buy a call for his team. And then it was brought up after that. I don't understand that, and I agree with you. LeBron James, Chris Paul also went down when he hurt his shoulder earlier in that game. He didn't play it up as much as LeBron. Yeah, he was trying to get a call too. I mean, that's what people do in sports, I mean, for crying out loud, look at soccer. People take dives all over the field when they don't even get hit or touched or whatever. Shaquille O'Neal was known as a big guy down low, and other guys got all the calls against him. And I do think there's a difference between when Alex is doing a high school game as opposed to a college game as opposed to a professional game. But Liz Cambage is a professional. She plays in the league, and like you said, from what I understand, she's not going to be playing for Australia in the Olympics because of some of her things that she said about the country and this, that, and the other. But for him to get suspended and fined, I don't understand it. What did he do that was so wrong when he's trying to elicit a call for his team? He didn't say, hey, that fat whatever, this or that. He said, come on, man, she's huge. She's 300 pounds, and you're calling a foul on my team. Okay, he exaggerated the weight. But the point was, he was saying, she's a big girl, and my girl's not. I just think there's way too much being made out of it.
Alex?
I agree. I just think context. I think context matters, and what Frank said and what you said is true. The coach said it. An announcer. I think if you wanted to take issue with the way an announcer described a girl, I might listen to that. But the way the coach said it in that context, I also think during a game, trash talk between players, trash talk between coaches, things that coaches say to players or coaches say to refs or vice versa, outside of like actual, derogatory racist language or like actually offensive language, I think there's a certain amount of leeway there. Like I think certain things that get said on the floor stay on the floor.
Yeah. And the sad thing is, we all make decisions on what to cover. And like, I have some passionate takes about this, but I look at it, I'm like, really, no one cares. No one cares. No, very few people care about the WNBA. So why go on some crazy rant with like, what's it worth? Like, what's the fight being undertaken here? But I will tell you, I was disturbed by the fact that, to answer Brady's question, there was a whole flap last summer. It might have been the beginning of the fall, with Amber Dixon and Liz Cambage, where for some reason Amber decided to go in on Liz about posing. She posed naked in Playboy, right? There were a couple of nude shots, I think, and Amber went down like the role model path, and like whatever. I think Amber was wrong, but then like Liz Cambage gets on Instagram and started going down racial lines, and I was like, I'm going to cover a sport, and then the local team is going to have someone on the team potentially pop off and call me a racist, right? Like that's going to happen often, and you're seeing it. It's happening repeatedly. What's the friggin' point? I mean, you could sit down and have some open dialogue, but apparently no one is going to sit down with her and go, it starts to lose its effect when you bring it up all the time. And like, do you really think the guy who's coaching in the WNBA, the Connecticut Sun, is like racist somehow? Like a little white guy? I don't even get where she's going.
Yeah, I don't get where she's going on that. And the one thing that I find amusing of this whole thing is Bill Laimbeer is sitting over there coaching the Aces. How much stuff did he hear when he was with the bad boys and that on the court on a daily basis, game by game and everything else? And now he's looking at this. He's got to be in the back room or something like that going, what the hell has happened to the game of basketball?
Frank, I can't guarantee it because I'm not at practice. I will guarantee you that Laimbeer has said stuff similar to this Connecticut Sun coach if Liz isn't busting ass in practice and is playing soft. I will almost guarantee you.
Well, and there was reports of her coming into camp this year out of shape.
Yeah.
So I don't have problem like in a couple high school games this year. Because of COVID and because it's high school already, like we can really hear what the coaches are saying. And I'll hear like the coach from a high school just yelling at it, just screaming at his high school players. And some of the people that are like on the staff or whatever doing the broadcast with me are like, oh, that's not cool. And I'm like, I don't know, fuck it. Like I don't know. It's in the heat of the game. So if this coach is like yelling, you fucking suck at his high school players, I don't know. It doesn't bother me really. Like stuff that happens in the context of a game doesn't bother me. It's different, I think, than necessarily like if I were to say 300, what is she like 300 pounds down there? Like that's maybe different. But the coach saying it, I'm like, I don't know. There's like a certain amount of leeway.
And by the way, I don't hate women's basketball. I have a lot of respect for the kind of hoops they play, and especially at that level. And I don't know. I think women's sports truly arrives when you can talk about the women like we talk about the men and never have to worry about certain language. So I think to me, this is a kind of a sad story, and I'll take it back to my college days. Like at school at Rutgers, they had a pretty good basketball team, like a top 40 team. And I remember they had a center, LaTanya Johnson, and she was probably 250 pounds. She was 6'4", and she was a big lady. And she came out to play pickup one day, and I was like, all right, let's play pickup. And like before you know it, she was doubled over because I freaking like threw an elbow in her stomach, and I'm like, we're playing. But and she didn't, she wasn't like, white boy. Like she didn't turn like, it was just you're competing, you're playing, and if she had elbowed me in the face, then I probably would have gotten a bloody nose. And actually, we had an opportunity a couple times. We had pretty, believe it or not, yes, I was on a pretty decent intramural team. Of course, I loaded it up with a bunch of big guys, but we had a team that was a little bit smaller, and they asked us to come out to the women's basketball practice just to kind of replicate a much higher pace, right? And a little more strength maybe than what they were used to. And I'll tell you, when the women ran their offense, and like I thought I was in decent shape when they ran their offense, to follow them running the offense and to try to get through picks, because most of them were a little bit taller than me, 5'11", 6 foot, 6'1". Man, I took so many friggin' sharp elbows to the ribs, to the face, to the shoulder. I was like, they are good athletes, right? Now they the one weakness was sometimes jumping ability. They weren't grabbing a lot of rebounds. We had some guys who were like 6'1", 6'2". They kind of maxed it out at 6'2" on our team, but women can play basketball. They can play at a high level, but I just think that it cheapens the whole thing. And I wonder around the league if there's some other women who are actually like, Liz, cut it out. Like, you're not helping the cause by doing this. So that's it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I tend to agree with you, and the other thing that I agree with you on is, if they want to be on the same level and they want to be taken serious in that, then trash. This wasn't even trash talking. And I don't want to sound like a broken record here. It was a coach trying to buy a call. Yeah, he overset her weight because he was trying to make a point. He was exaggerating intentionally. For him to get fined and suspended or whatever for something like that, I just don't get it. And again, I know that, the old man shaking his fist on his lawn or something like that, but a lot of this is perpetuated today because of Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff. In the old days, where would Liz Cambage where would she have gone out and said anything about it? Maybe with an interview after the game talking to a media person, but now that everybody has a platform where they can put anything out there, she says this and now it's a story. In the old day, it wouldn't have been a story unless she was able to bring it up somehow, and even then somebody might have gone, yeah, that might not have, it might have been on the cutting room floor or something. It's just, I think it's making a story out of nothing, but that's what happens a lot today.
The other thing is there's a productive story that can come out of this, right? Like, Alex doesn't understand it because, he's young, he's thin, he's got a beautiful mustache, handsome young man, right? But for Frank and I, Frank and I are a little bit beefy, right? We can battle weight at times. Like, if it's a body image thing for Liz Cambage, then yeah, let's get into it, right? I'm sure, listen, she's a woman who's 6'8". That is not an easy life to live. So there's a discussion to be had, but when you go like 0 to 100, call, go racial in it, and then say it's just fat shaming, I don't know. It defeats the purpose. But who am I? Who am I, Alex? Right? Who am I? Frank, do you want to stick around for a little more basketball talk? Do you want to bolt? What do you want to do?
I can stick around if you'd like me to. Sure.
Alex lived the dream over the weekend. He really did. He lived the dream. I saw him at a basketball game, mugging it up. I think that was his pops. Is that your dad?
That was my dad. Yeah, we went to the Clippers game for his birthday.
And then of all the games to get back into big-time arenas, you picked the Clippers. My Lord.
Dude, I mean, that was what I wanted to talk about. This isn't – I'm struggling as a fan. This isn't necessarily like riveting NBA analytical talk, but the Clippers just keep disappointing me, and it's getting worse and worse. And it's like the first time I went to a game in over a year, 15 months. First time I went to a game since, I think, December of 2019. And the Clippers lose game one. And I just had such high hopes as a fan after the Kawhi and PG-13 trade and signing. I was thinking, okay, one of these upcoming seasons, Kawhi will probably get an MVP. Maybe PG-13 will get an MVP. They'll be in the hunt, and the Clippers are going to be – the franchise is going to have a different feel to it. But instead, it's just been more of the same, and it's been so disappointing. And after last year's playoff collapse, I really had a hard time getting that gusto as a fan up. And then I go to the game, first game, so excited. Bought my dad tickets for his birthday, made a whole day of it, and I just leave with such a bad taste in my mouth. So I'm like, I just don't know how, as a fan, how much longer I can hold on. Because it's one thing.
Cut it out.
It's not. They don't suck anymore. They've like built up expectations, and I'd rather just have them suck and then maybe get a scrappy win here.
No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. Stop.
That's how I feel, man.
Well, you're wrong. What are you drinking? Freaking raw eggs there?
That's water with lemon.
Frank, tell him how wrong he is. Like what it's like to root for teams that don't win for 20 years. Like you'd much rather be in the hunt. You would much rather. This is my Packer rant all the time, right? Packers fans whine, that they've only won a couple of Super Bowls with Favre and Rodgers, but like you get the ride, you get the enjoyment the whole way. You're competitive. There's hope. There are teams out there that don't win for years, like decades. There's not even a moment of excitement.
No, absolutely. I completely agree with you. I'm from Chicago. I have a lot of friends that are Cubs fans. I knew people that were in their 80s and 90s that passed away and never saw their team win a World Series. So, there's certainly that. I'm a Bears fan. I don't know how much longer I continue to talk about how great the 85 team was. Well, I do know how long I'm going to until they plant me myself, because I'm always going to talk about that team. It's a shame we only won the one Super Bowl. But, people, I'm a Blackhawk fan because I'm from Chicago. I used to have season tickets and go to the games. I've loved hockey my whole life. And you won 3 Stanley Cups. Not when I was living there. They hadn't won since 1960. And when I left in 92 or whatever, they hadn't won. They finally got good when I left. Even the Bulls finally got good when I left, and they won their 6 championships. So, yeah, I've seen some success, but I've seen a lot of really, really, really bad teams there. But it is more exciting when at least you're in the running and you're there. One thing that is that I find amusing is how the Vegas Golden Knights fans, nobody hated them when they came into the league. Oh, it's the Vegas Golden Knights. They don't have any rivalry. They're Vegas' own. Now when I talk to my friends back in Chicago or people from other cities and that, people can't stand it because this fan base has been so spoiled because they've been so good every year. No, they haven't won a Stanley Cup yet, but take a team like Winnipeg who just knocked off Edmonton. When Vegas played them in that first season as the Golden Knights, that was the first time in Winnipeg's history they'd ever won a playoff series even to advance. And we're going back to the days that they were in Atlanta before they were even in Winnipeg. A lot of teams suffer for a long, long time. So you enjoy the victory when you get it. But, part of being a fan is, sticking with your team when they do suck. I can't tell you how many times, and Steve can attest to this because he saw me when we worked together at Lotus and that. I'd wear my Bears shirt and people would be like, oh, I'd wear it after a win. I would make sure that I wore it after a loss because that's what being a fan is. You hate it. I can't stand the Packers, partly because I'm envious of them. I think Aaron Rodgers should give me the total middle finger and just walk away from the game of football. Yeah, show me. Get out of the game. But with the Clippers, let me ask you this, Alex, real quick, because I've always wondered this. Why do they continue to play at the Staples Center? Why are you in the arena where you're the third tenant? It's always going to be the Lakers' house and the Kings in hockey. Why haven't they ever gone to Anaheim or built a new stadium or something? I've never understood why an NBA team is the third tenant in an arena.
Well, they're finally doing that. They're building a new stadium in Inglewood, so that should be open in the next couple of years.
So it only took how many years?
Shoot. They started playing in Staples when it opened. And before that, they played in the Sports Arena, which was a joke.
I'm old enough to remember the San Diego Clippers, and before that, the Buffalo Braves.
Yeah, no, you're up there. You can remember the Buffalo Braves.
Yes, I won't be around much longer, so be nice to me, young man.
I just said he's like, you're old.
See, you wouldn't say that if I was female, would you? Because you wouldn't want to insult me.
Whenever anybody brings up the Buffalo Braves to me, I'm honestly always just like, wow. I got to respect this person. This is an elder. Like if someone talks about the Buffalo, I had a barber when I was living in Long Beach, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I used to watch the Braves growing up in Buffalo." And I'm like, "Damn, this dude's seen some shit. Like this dude's old." But no, they're building a new arena in Inglewood. That's all Ballmer, right? The reason the Clippers didn't have an arena is because they had the worst owner in pro sports in Donald Sterling. So any corner that could be cut, any smart move would not be made. Any corner that could be cut would be cut. And now they have a dynamic owner in Steve Ballmer, so they're getting their new arena in Inglewood that'll be opening in the next couple of years. State-of-the-art arena, it'll be great. But until then, man, and you're right, Cofield, you're right. Like, of course, it's better to have some hope. It's better to be in the hunt.
It's a stupid lecture for me to give you. I would be extremely pissed off the Clippers have been on the verge here for a couple of years, and I would be down in the dumps too. But the weird thing with the Clippers to me is it's almost like they make counterproductive moves on purpose, and it just defies logic. Like, are they saving Kawhi Leonard now? Like, you gave him plenty of rest. Why the frig is he not defending Luka? Every minute he can, destroy that kid. Come on.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, man. Like, when Kawhi came over from the Raptors, he was being talked about as, finally taking that GOAT crown, finally taking that best player in the league crown from LeBron, and he was almost seeming invincible. So I'm like, okay, cool. He's going to get an MVP one of the next couple of years. We'll win a ring one of the next 2 years. Then he'll re-sign. And I've just been waiting. I'm just waiting. I'm like, okay, he's resting. Well, he's got to get healthy. Oh, okay, so that happened. But now this year we finally figured it out. Oh, we got rid of Doc Rivers. So now we got Ty Lue. We're going to rework things. Oh, okay, we traded Lou Williams, but I guess that was the right move because playoff Rondo. And I'm just still kind of waiting. And the years on Kawhi's contract are ticking down, and we're losing the game one against the Mavericks. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, it's just, as a fan, I'm just struggling with it because I'm just tired of I'm tired of getting my hopes up. I like with the Lob City team, it almost always felt like, or with the Lob City teams, I always got disappointed with the Clippers. They blew that series to the Rockets in 2015 after finally getting over the hump of being the Spurs, and they were always the team that everyone hated. But I felt like with the Lob City teams, at least I was entertained thoroughly all the time in every game. And with this team, I'm kind of just left like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I guess we're good, but I'm not. I don't know. There's some part of the equation's missing for me, and I'm struggling with it as a fan.
He's a broken man.
I feel broken. I left the game. You know what happened in 2017? The Clippers lost that first series against the Utah Jazz, and I went to game 1 and I went to game 7 of that series. And after game 1, I almost fought a random lady at the bar after, and some Jazz fan was talking to me, and I was just like, no, I was ready to fight people over the Clippers after game 1. And after this game, I just walked out and I was like, I don't even know when we play again.
Oh, wow.
I just don't. I literally was down to get in fist fight, yelling, talking shit to people on the street in 2017, and now 3-4 years later, I'm like, I don't even have that.
That hurts, man.
You
were a good, passionate sports fan when you wanted to beat up that lady. When you walked out and you didn't act like a sore loser, I mean, it just means you've lost your edge.
I lost my. You know what actually happened? It was my friend came to the game with us, and he thought it'd be funny to wear he went to Lids that day and he bought a Jazz hat just to piss me off, which I was like, that's a dick move, but whatever. And then he was kind of talking some trash after the game and something, and I threw my menu at the restaurant, and it bounced. It was a hard menu, and it bounced and hit some lady in the leg.
Yeah, man.
She was like, what the fuck? And then her boyfriend was like, what the fuck are you doing? And I'm like, I don't want to fucking talk to you guys. The Clippers just lost. Get the fuck out of here. And now I would never do that. I would never throw a menu because I just don't care enough. Yeah, it's probably maturity, but I think the Clippers suck some life out of me.
I love it. Every time someone's like, there's no Clippers fans, I'm like, Exhibit A, he's a lunatic. He's the most calm, nice dude all the time. I've never seen him really get mad. Clippers, though.
The Clippers used to bring it out of me.
Now, after so many years of seeing them be competed and kind of rip your heart out time after time after time, is it just now that you kind of just expect it so it doesn't affect you the same way? Because you're like, if I'm going to let this get me this upset every year, I'm not going to be around long or something like that, because it's just, I know the inevitable is coming at some point, because I know in Chicago with Cubs fans and that's how it was. When Bartman was blamed for the Cubs blowing a World Series opportunity, forget about Gonzalez making the error at short and the pitchers being in too long and that there was still a game 7 and everything. It was all on the guy in the crowd who went after the ball that, by the way, 4 other people were also going after. They always look for a reason for, all right, where's that dark cloud? Okay, here it is. Let's go. Now we've got our excuse. Is it kind of like that? Or are you just kind of now numb to the feeling of thinking well, I know it's going to happen eventually, so I can't let it completely destroy me?
Yeah, you know what? I think that's a good analysis, Frank, because I used to go into those games or watch games, playoff games for the Clippers, and actually had belief. But now I'm just I almost go into the game expecting the disappointment. So how can I ever get my emotions so high that I snap? It's just kind of they're never getting that high because I'm just kind of meh.
It's a great comment. The Clippers have been trashed for their entire existence of their team's history. Well, not the entire time. But why would you get worked over with the worst history in American team sports? I don't know. Why am I a Jets fan? Why are there Browns fans? You pick your sport. Why are there Sabres fans still? Because you become a fan, and eventually you're like, yeah, maybe they'll turn the corner. And it can't be that hard.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, and my counter to that statement would be like, well, what? Should you just be a fan that keeps on jumping on everybody's bandwagon going, oh, this team's good now, so now I'm a this fan. Oh, wait, now I'm a that fan. Now, I mean, it's easy to cheer for winners. It takes true heart and having your heart ripped out time after time to stick with a team that loses year after year after year, hoping that at some point they're not going to.
I think Gil the Thrill is a Lakers fan, too. And Lakers fans, they live in this alternate universe. They live in an alternate universe. Like, I saw Lakers fans on Twitter after that play-in game, first play-in game. They were like, this is a game. It's going to be talked about for a long, long time. I'm like, no, it's not.
And then they come out and they look like ass yesterday.
I'm like, this game's not going to be talked about.
Gil the Thrill, Laker fan for life.
I knew it.
Actually, you know what? I put down a bet in game, and I don't know if you watched the very end of the Lakers game, but I had plus 9.5, and the last minute was just a disaster. And then Alex Caruso hits a three, basically with 3 seconds left to get the cover, and I was like, yeah. And my girlfriend is a Lakers fan. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, I bet the game. Calm down. Like, I'm not happy we lost. Come on, you gotta, you bet with your head, not your heart. Relax. This is hilarious. Cofield or Frank, when's the last time you got overly angry about a sports incident with your team? Ohio State?
I can answer that. The year that Ohio State and the Chicago Bears both went to the championship, obviously the Bears were playing, the Colts in the Super Bowl. Ohio State played Florida in the championship game. I saw both of my teams, and I was doing remotes at that time when we used to do them out at the Galaxy Theater, watching the games on the 60-foot screen. They sold beer in the theater. It was a great environment. I saw both of my teams when I had to be at the entire game hosting a party and be Mr. Smiley happy guy, run the opening kickoff back for touchdowns, and then lose the game. I saw Ted Ginn Jr. do it for Ohio State. The Buckeyes lost the game. The Bears start out. Devin Hester runs the opening kickoff back, and the Bears fans are going crazy, and I was literally standing there going, you son of a bitches, don't you dare do this to me again. Because the one thing Rex Grossman could do was throw the ball long. Except for that day, he couldn't do anything. Peyton Manning got the MVP, although he didn't have a great game. Hosting parties in a 600 people in the theater, having to give out gifts and everything. I was like trying to be smiling and represent the station, but I was so miserable inside. I actually think at one point I punched the wall, and I think I might have broken a knuckle or something because it was a cement wall, and I didn't realize that when I hit it. It was very, very frustrating. I still am too immature when it comes to some of that kind of stuff. But I was just when Hester ran that kickoff back, I knew it's deja vu. A couple weeks later, it's going to happen to me again. And there wasn't a damn thing I could do about it.
It is hilarious that just like 5 minutes ago, we both were lecturing Alex, like, keep your chin up, buddy. Don't give up. And now people are asking, like, when's the last time we got really mad with our team?
When was you, Cofield?
Well, Rally Mantis is completely inaccurate here. I was actually happy the entire year. And I one of the happiest, I actually said it to another Jets fan, and then he tried to correct me. I still think I'm wrong. I still think I'm right. The one of the happiest moments last year for me was the Jets losing at the end to the Patriots, because it was like twofold. The Jets stayed alive for Trevor Lawrence, and Patriots fans are so stupid that they were super happy that they got a win in what was going to be a season where they'd win 7 or 8 games. Like, what are you celebrating? Now, the most angry with the Jets last year, I sat there and just kind of leaked. I was like, when the Rams lost to the Jets, I'm like, fuck. I'm like, there goes Trevor Lawrence. Like, I sent out pictures. Like, I wasn't kidding. Like, people think I'm like, when I come in and I rant and rave about it, like, I'm not kidding about it. So, and obviously my school had a 9-point lead to get to the Sweet 16 against Houston, and they blew it. College basketball NCAA tournament. Houston makes the Final Four, so fuck that. And like I just said, on Saturday, I sat there for like 4 minutes after they lost a lacrosse game, and I was pissed off. So
I almost cringe these days when I see Ohio State make the championship tournament in football. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to get embarrassed again.
Yeah, were you just like going into the championship game where you're like, this is going to be tough?
I wasn't expecting victory. I was hoping for it, but I certainly wasn't expecting it. And but you still have to watch every play. Like maybe it could happen. It happened back against Miami back in the day in the game that people are still bitching about the pass interference in the end zone and stuff. It's like shut up, get over it. We won the game. Go to hell.
That's why in a way the tank for when seasons are going like shit and you have a chance to get a generational talent or a number one pick. That's why the tank for stuff is actually kind of fun because it gives the teams at the bottom. You're like, the team sucks. Like, just give me some hope. And that's what the draft is all about. So,
but the NBA doesn't have that anymore, Steve, because they have the play-in tournament now, so everybody plays out the entire season.
Well, that and they also they strip down the lottery so much that I think the number one team only has like 25% of the balls.
Yeah,
and we've seen number one, the worst team, oftentimes does not get the top pick. So, Alex, how about this? Brady's looking to cheer you up. Frank missed out on this a while ago, but look what we got coming here in Vegas. This is another reason to come back. We've got a giant new bar at Ellis Island, and it's called the Front Yard, and they're actually going to do a pop-up for a month. That's tiki.
So you're saying I should come to Vegas for a special tiki bar visit?
Well, I mean, we've got at least 3 places here that are good tiki places. We got Frank's Tiki Bar, we got the Golden Tiki, and this place is really cool. The Front Yard, it's amazing, and now they're gonna have tiki themes. Like, come on, look, doesn't that get you going?
Oh, tiki does really get me going.
Yeah, we talked about it.
I know.
And you got mocked heavily on this podcast, and I had your back. I'm like, yeah, tiki's cool.
I went to a tiki bar one of the times I was in Vegas in the last couple of years. I forget which one it was. You said there was a place called Golden Tiki?
Golden Tiki's a lot newer. You would know Frank's Tiki. Frank's Tiki is like one of the darkest bars I've ever been in. It is pitch black when you walk in. It takes a good 5 minutes for your eyes to adjust. Like when you first walk in, you're like, I'm going to die. I'm going to trip on something. I'm going to break a leg.
Yes, I think that's where I went. That place was awesome. I love places like that. I'll die on the Tiki Hill.
Brady, we can't. He's still upset about the Clippers. He's like, it's late at night. He's tired. We were supposed to be out here like 10 minutes ago. We're trying to. Okay, Brady's not buying your enthusiasm.
I want to come out to Vegas again. I almost, no, I didn't almost go, but my roommate went on a whim last weekend, and if I had been around, I might have tagged along. So I'm saying I was close. I was almost close to going.
10 different drinks. 10 different drinks. 10 different tiki drinks.
See,
cocktails, punch bowls. Here we go.
I'm nervous to return to Vegas because I don't want another corn cob incident. If we go out drinking. If we go out drinking, I don't want to be like gnawing on random food laying around the table.
Yeah.
I've been known to get there.
Frank, just so you know, Alex came out like right at the beginning of the pandemic. We hung out at Westgate one night and we did a podcast from like a little room off of the sports book. And Alex, I don't think had eaten, and he got a little drunk, and then we went to go to get some Japanese tapas. And towards the end of the meal, he was just like eating anything he could, including my leftovers. So
that was bad. Yeah,
which was a corn on the cob, and he just started gnawing on a corn on the cob. That was like there was no corn; it was just cob.
I'm just such a Vegas rookie. Like every time in Vegas, I always get too drunk and get so excited and get caught up in the bright lights.
It happens. I'm sure Frank's seen it. You have visitors come to town; they don't know what the hell they're doing. They get too excited.
And it's funny too because, like I say, when I worked on comp all those years, and I would always get invites to all these bars and that. And because growing up, my dad was an alcoholic, I really don't drink. I mean, I'll have a drink to be sociable with friends and that sort of stuff. But I mean, you know me, Steve. I'm always getting flack from everybody for why do you drink so much Coca-Cola? It's because that's what I like. Well, you need to have a drink with us. It's like, dude, I didn't give into peer pressure when I was 14 years old. I'm not doing it now at this age. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I'll have a beer or a drink to be sociable or something. But even living in Vegas all these years and being invited out where I could be comped drinks and that, it's never been my thing. But I have friends that drink and do other things and that. I don't begrudge anybody for doing it as long as you don't give me crap about not doing it. But a
Mark,
tiki bar, I don't believe I've ever been to one.
oh, dude, you love it. Frank's a part of that. He's all about the accoutrements. We'll get to the A's to close out in a second. Pro Martini Maker. What are these? Your bars? Great American bars. Okay. Really, Distill on Durango, huh? It's pretty quiet there. You must know the bartender. I think I know one of the bartenders there, but we'll have to check that out. Now the bars are open again. Well, they were always open, so we were there, but now they're more open than they were before. Alex, so we haven't. Well, were you? I know were you on last week? Yeah, you were on last week, but it was a freaking. It was weird.
I was late. I was super late.
We did talk about the A's relocation. So the A's either visited or they're visiting today and tomorrow or whatever. Yeah, today and tomorrow, Vegas. Frank, what do you think? Would baseball work here?
It's hard to say that anything wouldn't work here because the community in the city has gravitated towards pretty much everything that's come here. And I know there is a big baseball base in that. I just don't know it's so many games and at major league prices. They're used to playing minor league prices for so many years. I love the beautiful new ballpark. I think it would if they're realistic about it. If they're expecting Dodger Stadium numbers and 3 million fans every year in that, then I'm not sure, then no, it's not going to work at that level. But are they looking to draw as many fans as Kansas City does or someplace else or something like that? I think it can, as long as the realistics are, expectations are there. And one other thing that we know about this city, Steve, and you certainly know it as well as I do, when I first moved out here, Vegas is a basketball town. They love basketball. Well, guess what? UNLV's quit winning and the fans quit showing up to a lot. If they get a baseball team out here or anything else, one of the keys to getting people in the seats is winning and putting a decent product out there. Now, the Raiders maybe don't have that stigma as much because it's the NFL, but at least, they're still even around like 500 and that sort of stuff, are right in competitive and, their high expectations at the start of the season. If they put a team out here and they suck, then they're not going to draw. If it's the A's, who seem to be relatively competitive year after year, I think they would do well. But again, it depends on what the expectations are. If they think they're going to get 3 million people like the Dodgers do or the Yankees do or something like that, I don't see that. But there's no reason that they couldn't be at least mid-pack or even maybe a little bit above that and draw like some of the other teams do. And if they're competitive, that's going to help. And I guess the other question is going to be, where's the stadium going to be? I mean, it's going to be a new stadium. I don't think they're going to make, Las Vegas ballpark and expand it or something. They can't. City National's right behind it. So, there's a lot of factors involved, but I think it could. I just don't know for sure that it will, but they've got to be competitive for it to work.
Alex, I just thought of this. I'm going to test your sports knowledge because I don't know the answer, so you get embarrassed.
Okay.
We're somewhere between market 28 and 32, Vegas, and there's nothing outside of the immediate area. So our population is 2.2, 2.3 million. And this is for the audience too. This just hit me. If we could go from having no major league teams to 3 in a 10-year span, would we be the smallest city in the country with 3 major league teams? What's I guess no, it's not Buffalo because they don't have
Pittsburgh. Maybe
they don't have a third. Nah, I think Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh's around about the 24th market.
Okay.
3 sports, right? 3 sports. So Mark and LV said Charlotte, but right now Charlotte only has 2 major. I mean, Charlotte's in the running, so they obviously would be the smallest or could be the smallest. Who else? Is there somewhere super small and you're like, whoa, how do they have all pro sports? Yeah, New Orleans, it could be in the running for, they would be a long shot, which we have to get someone on from New Orleans. New Orleans would be smaller. Buffalo only has 2. Nashville only has 2. Right? Am I right?
Where's Milwaukee at in the city rankings? I guess they don't have 3 though, do they?
Mid-20s. Now Milwaukee.
3.
Green Bay is not technically Milwaukee.
No.
So.
Yeah.
Milwaukee also does have the advantage too. Is it's almost. I mean, if you go in that area, Milwaukee and Chicago are almost one big gigantic metropolis or something like that. So they do get a lot of people from Chicago that go up there as well. But But yeah, I don't know exactly how big Milwaukee is. So
Yeah, there's also different rankings like TV markets, radio markets. I don't know. I got to look that
right.
up.
Well,
But
it is interesting
that
though.
would be incredible.
What's interesting about Vegas, like you said though, is that there is no like outlying area. Whereas
Right.
you can, like with Southern California or even Northern California, like you can break it down like Los Angeles proper. You can include these outlying areas. You include like these outlying areas.
Well, it's basically like how many people can drive in to see your game from 2 hours away, right?
Exactly.
Like even 2 hours away from Vegas, there's still nothing. Like,
yeah, exactly. No, that's
nothing.
unique. That's unique.
Now, the other thing that makes us unique, and this is why the comparison is kind of crazy, is that on any given weekend, we've got between 60,000 and 400,000 coming to town. So that adds to the population and boosts the town. But that's a weekend. That's not every week. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too, Steve. As you know, I mean, everybody always talks about, well, whatever team moves here, well, the fan base is going to come from that team, and they're going to be here all the time. And it's like, but can you count on fan bases to do it? It's one thing to come for an NFL game once a year or a hockey game once a year. For baseball, for 3 or 4 game stays and multiple series during the season, and that, you're asking a little bit more of it. You're also asking that the economy and everything completely bounces back for people.
Alex, last one before we get you out of here, both guys. Appreciate it, guys. Alex, can you explain your high school rant with the live video thing? I thought that was interesting.
No, yeah. I'm super pissed off about this. So it's the postseason now for certain sports. And in California, we have CIF, right? I don't know what the Nevada version is, but that's the governing body for high school sports, California Interscholastic Federation. And so the high school that I work at, we are going to be live streaming. We want to live stream. We've got a wrestling meet tomorrow. We've got volleyball in the first round of the playoffs on Wednesday. We've got girls hoops in the first round of the playoffs on Saturday. And CIF wants to charge $500 to the high school for us to live stream our own event. And I think that
Where's it live streaming to?
It's live streaming to.
Is it on their website?
It's on the high school. It's on YouTube Live that we link on the high school website. But CIF has nothing to do with it other than that they sanction the event.
So you're a member school, so they want to make money off your live streams.
They want to make
which will then suppress the amount of live streams that are out there, and only wealthy schools will be able to do it.
Yes, and part of their motivation, I believe, is that they don't want to potentially lose out on revenue from people attending the event, because in the postseason they charge the ticket fee at the door, not the school. The CIF charges the ticket fee at the door in the postseason. And I think their thought process is, we will lose out on revenue if we allow people to just watch the game from home. But in particular, I have a problem with that this year because attendance is legally required to be extremely limited because of COVID. But CIF is still charging $500 a game. So the high school, I had to beg and plead for them, and I had to get wealthy high school parents to shell out money for us to be able to live stream these games because CIF won't waive the fee. And I just look at that and I'm like, how can you pretend to be for the kids? And how can you pretend to be promoting education-based athletics and you're going to keep people from being able to watch these games in a year where they can't go to the game, but you're still going to charge $500? It's just super hypocritical. And I'm very mad at this California Interscholastic Federation. I just think they're hypocrites. I'm pissed off.
There's got to be more to the story. Has your boy, what's his name, Eric Sonheimer at the LA Times, gone nuts on it?
He's probably busy sucking the CIFD because he loves everything they do.
He's actually pro CIF.
I don't know. He's just, he's a long-time prep sports writer, and he seems to fall in line. All the long-time prep high school, all the prep newspaper writers in SoCal seem to kind of fall in lockstep with whatever CIF says. And I'm just I'm looking at it it is the NCAA mentality, but I don't know. Just for me, I think that if grandma can't go to the game because of COVID restrictions, she should be able to watch it on TV. And CIF's they're not losing out on revenue because grandma can't even go to the game, but now the school can't live stream it because they don't want to pay potentially $1,500 this week. By the way, I'm sorry, but no one's coming to watch the wrestling duel. No one's coming to watch that. So it should be
and plus, if they care about the kids, isn't more exposure and that kind of stuff better for the kids, and it does more so they can get scholarships or get something else out there? I mean, if it's about the kids, what the hell do they care about whatever pennies they're going to make revenues wise and that kind of stuff if they're doing what's best for the student athlete?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's it right there, Frank. That's it right there. It's like wouldn't and as Brady said, no one's streaming. You're not losing out on people. No one's staying home to stream it if they can go to the game. Like, I'm sorry, like people in the community are going to come to the game if they can. If they're forced to stream, they will. But
it's blackout rules.
Yeah.
Major League Baseball. We want people to come out to the games. We can't be streaming this stuff. We're losing intense revenue at the gate.
Well, but Steve, if it's a blackout rule, that means we're not going to be able to see it in Vegas because, like all the baseball teams in that, we'll be allowed. We won't be allowed to watch the streaming.
I think we're blacked out from like 8 cities. As I just mentioned, nothing is close to Vegas, so every place we'd have to go is like a 5-hour drive to watch baseball, and they're like, "Nope, can't show you Angels games. Too close."
That's so wow.
You might ruin the attendance by not driving down and watching it on TV. So
you might take a 6-hour road trip to Anaheim.
Yeah.
Remember when Denver was part of that? I mean, you're not going to Denver unless you're hopping on a plane.
Yep, we're blacked out from freaking Denver.
That's hilarious.
Colorado Rockies? No, that's a Vegas market.
That's funny.
Yeah, when we looked at that list of the smallest cities, so it looks like the smallest city proper or metro would be Cleveland. Cleveland's 34 on the list I have here. Vegas is 28. But like I said earlier, there's probably another 2 million people who live within a 2-hour drive of Cleveland. There's like thousands that live within a 2-hour drive of Vegas. So that'd be a pretty big undertaking. So we'll see. I'm not saying I'm anti the A's coming here. I just like to see the stadium plan. So that's all I got. Frank, that was awesome, man. I appreciate you coming in.
No, my pleasure. It's been a while, and glad that things are going well with you. And maybe we can do it again sometime soon.
Tell everyone the station. And you said 2 to 4 Monday to Friday with TC.
Yeah, 2 to 4 Monday through Friday with TC Martin, the TC Martin Show on K-Shop 1400 AM. And if you are out and about in the Henderson area on Fridays, we actually do the show live from outside of Club Madrid down there in the studio down there. Not that you can actually come in and see us, but you can, knock on the window or something like that and annoy us or something. So, and watch TC try to do his dance moves because he still thinks he's got game.
Oh, wow. That's a visual I can't shake. Alex, what do you got coming up this week? Can we watch the streams or not? Are you guys going to buy all the streams? Can we watch some of the stuff?
The parents forked out money. That's because we're a wealthy high school. We got wrestling postseason tomorrow night at 6:00. We got volleyball postseason Wednesday night at 6:00, and we've got track and field league finals Friday at 4:00, and we've got girls hoop Saturday at 7:00. I'll tweet out all the links.
Awesome.
Follow me on Twitter at Dr_Croft. I'll tweet out the links if you want. I mean, this isn't really the crowd necessarily.
Yes, it is. Yes. These are P1s. They love sports at all levels.
And are you announcing all this stuff?
Yeah, I'm doing the play-by-play for it all. And we did golf today. Today at the Newport Beach Country Club. That was a trip. I've never done golf. That's why I'm wearing this.
When you're doing golf, do you whisper like they do on TV?
It was actually good because I was like really hungover today, and so I was kind of like quiet and subdued on the broadcast, and everyone was like, "Wow, you this was amazing." And normally I have like a triple shot espresso before, and I'm like super jacked up, and so today I was really subdued, and everyone I absolutely loved it. So I wasn't like sick hungover. I was just like I had a long weekend, and I was kind of tired, kind of dragging today a bit.
Sure. All right, everybody. Make sure you go to at Dr_Croft. Yeah, there you go. Wish him luck. Wish him luck.